Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever. My friends, on this second Sunday of Lent, the Church presents to us this awesome revelation, the Feast of the Transfiguration, the revelation through the body, the human body of Jesus, of his divinity to his intimate disciples. There's a tradition that this event took place 40 days before Good Friday, and so this gospel is presented to us early in Lent. But we also have this year the first reading taken from the book of Genesis, that awful, absolutely horrendous story of Abraham and his son Isaac, and God demanding of him that he give back Isaac in sacrifice. So let us begin there, because it has caught the attention of everyone down through the ages. Certainly, if the author wanted to get our attention, the author certainly succeeds. To think that God, who is the God of life, the God who provides human life and love, would demand a human sacrifice is really unthinkable. There is a message, I guess you would say, from Flannery O'Connor, who's a Catholic author, who's from down south, who lived back many years ago at this point. But one of her thoughts was to say, in the land of the deaf, you have to shout. And so the story of Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son is not about a capricious God. It's not about a cruel God. It's not about a God that is arbitrary. But rather, it's a God who wants to shake us up, who wants to shake our shoulder in order to get our attention, because so oftentimes we are spiritually deaf. St. Augustine offers to us a rule to live by. And that rule is simply this. He says, love God first and foremost, then love everything else and everyone else for the sake of God. St. Augustine, who really spent much of his theological considerations all about love and the ordering of love, offers us a means whereby to live our lives. Love God first and foremost, then love everyone and everything else in this world for the sake of God. The right ordering of human love. Isn't this same thing happening throughout all of the Bible, through all of the sacred scriptures? We find in the Old Testament that the first and foremost command of God is to love God above all else, with our whole heart, with our whole mind, with our whole being. And in the New Testament, Jesus adds to that to love others as we are loved. And so this is, in a sense, a key to understanding the plan of God and the work of God and understanding the fullness of the sacred scriptures. The lesson ultimately comes down to this. Whatever we love here below, including family and friends, is something we place higher than God. Whatever we love, and all of us have an attachment, a love for something or someone in our lives, if that is the focus of our life, if that is the way by which we measure everything else in our life, then that has become the highest good for us. And therefore, God no longer is the highest good for us. But the right ordering of love is that God is the highest good. And our love for everyone and everything else in this world needs to be for the sake of God. When we give into our own placing before ourselves what is a highest good of something or someone in this world, we fall away from God. We fall into temptation and sin. But when we place God first and foremost and love others and everything else in this world for the sake of God, we are rightly ordered and the graces of God manifest themselves within us. This is quite a story for us to contemplate during this holy season of Lent. For during Lent, the Church invites us to examine where our love is and how our love is ordered in our life. It's a tough question, one that requires much thought and thinking and prayer, because the Lord invites us into seeing the world and seeing life the way that He does. Jesus, in a sense, even continues this in His public ministry, does He not? He calls disciples, and He calls someone to become His follower, but the disciple to be says, "But let me first go and bury my Father who is dead." Certainly, that would seem to be a most sincere duty of someone. But Jesus says, "Let the dead bury their dead." It's not that Jesus is anti-family. It's not that Jesus is trying to interfere there. He's trying to put forth the shout, the shaking up of an individual to recognize that what is the highest and the most perfect good. And so let us ask the Lord today to help us take this story of Abraham and his son Isaac to heart as we continue our Lenten journey. Today, in this gospel of the Transfiguration, Jesus reveals himself in such a way as to convince his intimate apostles that he is divine, that his glory is hidden within his human life, and that the scandal of the cross, his suffering and dying, is merely the means to reveal the fullness of God's plan in the resurrection and his ascension. We ask the Lord today to open our hearts, to certainly shake up our lives, and to help us to love God first and foremost above all else, and everything in this world for the sake of God.